Welcome to the Weekly Woodcast with Dennis and Michael Woodworth, and we have a special guest who's a personal friend of mine here today, who I've known for, decades now, Michael Graves. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Michael, why don't you just give our listeners the background and the story of Michael Graves from the moment you arrived in our community, but where you came from and what you've accomplished so far.
Yeah. So I grew up in Montreal, had a hoot, lived on the West Island. It was typical childhood. We were outside all the time. We had no curfew except for the lights when the lights came on. Apart from that, there was no rules. We made up our own rules, and we just had an absolute gas. But back in the early 70s, the Quebec government had gone through a little bit of tension, and it was just getting harder and harder to live in Montreal. So my father picked us all up, and he moved us west to Vancouver. We settled specifically in North Vancouver. I lived on the side of Grouse Mountain, and I basically skied every day. So after school, my mother would pick me up from school.
I never knew that.
Yeah, so we
never knew that.
Yeah, I learned how to ski in Montreal, but we would ski. So I would. School would end at 3:15. We'd be at the ski hill at 3:45, ski to 8:30, and we do that 7 days a week, 30 days a month. And I think one year I skied 280 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So from there, we go up to Whistler, we go down to Sun Valley, Idaho. So
right. It's a beautiful place in the world.
Yeah. So I went to hotel school in Vancouver and tried to get into that business, but it's a tough business because it was a lot of fun and you could party a lot. And what I really wanted was to have a family, and it just wasn't a career that for me would work. Having a family, late hours and that kind of stuff. So I moved to Toronto because there was a recession in the early 80s in Vancouver. Moved to Toronto, got a job in sales, and which I hated, in food sales. But I got a job. One job I got was with a food distributor, and that food distributor specialized in childcare centers, and I could get behind that because I like kids, right? I like supporting kids. So what that particular distributor did was we sold food. We sold food to childcare centers. Supported their kitchens, and we had one little truck when I started. I was responsible for sales and marketing, and that one little cube van, really. I stayed there till 2003, and when I left, we had 9 large trucks. We had thousands of customers throughout Toronto, and I loved it. But at that point, they were doing a couple of crazy things with food, and I told them to stop, and if they didn't stop, I'd report them to the CRA. If they didn't stop, I reported them, I quit, and then I bought a business in eventually Bridgewater. There was other opportunities in St. John, New Brunswick, opportunities in Lower Sackville that didn't pan out, and somebody said, well, what about going to a place called Bridgewater, Nova Scotia? I said, well, where the hell is that?
No kidding, right?
Yeah, so we arrived in 2003 and had the business until 2013. I started running with the United Way in 2006 as their executive director, which I still do today and I love. I started volunteering in 2005 when we started Canada Day.
I remember that too.
Did a version of Canada Day. We did from Canada Day. There was a couple of spin-offs. One spin-off was we had a used hockey sport exchange, which continues today under the United Way as a used hockey equipment and soccer equipment exchange. We also I did a flyby that year. Or tried to do a flyby for Canada Day that didn't work out. So when it didn't work out, I said, well, if we still want to do it, so why don't we just do it for Remembrance Day? So the first year we did it, the flyby was over the cenotaph of the town of Bridgewater. But other years, we just asked the military if they would consider doing New Germany, and then Bridgewater and Lunenburg and Mahone Bay and Western Shore and Chester and New Ross. And we did that until I think 2012 when the Legion took it over.
Right.
And they should have been doing it in the first place, in my opinion. But yeah, so, then there's a whole bunch of stuff in between, stuff you do and stuff that just comes up.
So you decided about 8 years ago to get into municipal politics as well.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. So 2012 was one of those bucket list things. I've always been interested in politics. I always wanted to support the little guy.
Right.
And so I ran. I ran for municipal politics or municipal council in the town of Bridgewater. I got in, which was nice, and I appreciate that. And it was fun. It was a learning curve the first year.
I'm sure
the first
it was.
couple of years, I've always lived and worked in the private sector, and government certainly does things, and in many cases they do things right. So I ran for a second term, and I was kind of sitting on the fence, but I ran anyways.
Right.
I got in again, and we accomplished some good stuff. Town of Bridgewater has got a public transit system, which I'm extremely proud of. That started
I'm sure you are.
in the first term, and it finished in the second term. We have a plan a moving forward plan for our wastewater and sewers, which the town needed. It's limiting the growth right now, and we need to solve that problem. And it's a problem that communities across Canada and North America.
Say that.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. We're a community 120 years old, and some of those pipes are in fact 120 years old, and they have to be replaced.
Well, I mean, you think about it. We've buried so much under the water because we don't see it.
Yeah.
So for generations, we've just poured everything into the water because 3/4 of the planet is water.
Yeah.
So even vehicles, I remember watching and researching on certain subjects, and we've actually dumped automobiles into the lakes and things like that all over the world.
Yeah.
That now we're starting to see some of the repercussions from.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's good that we're seeing that, man, and it's good that people are reacting to it, and it's good that people want to change it, because it has to change.
Well, let's talk about one of the things that you really have been a leader of in our community is going green. You've always been a proponent of something that you want to bring emissions down on a global level or on a community level, which if you multiply it from community to community, it becomes a global level. Some of the ideas that you had, just let the listeners know about it.
Well, certainly for the town of Bridgewater, won the Smart Cities Challenge. And the idea of the Smart Cities Challenge is through retrofits, mainly, is to reduce energy poverty in the town of Bridgewater. A lot of people, about 40% of people in Bridgewater, but it would be the same throughout rural Nova Scotia, because the houses are made of wood, are living in energy poverty. And, if that problem can be solved, that I have no doubt that the team that the town of Bridgewater has, the Energized Bridgewater team will accomplish that goal, that by reducing emissions, it'll increase the amount of greenhouse gases going in this particular community, but it'll also help people. It'll save them money. So instead of Dennis, for example, paying $200 a month on power through retrofits and energy efficiency upgrades, he's only paying $25 a month. Then that's money that Dennis is going to put into his pocket. He's going to support his family, support his community, right? Instead of giving that money to Nova Scotia Power and then them buying energy, coal, as an example, from Venezuela, the money is going to stay right here in the town of Bridgewater, and that money is going to enhance the quality of life for people living here.
So some of the ideas, Michael, obviously you've thrown a lot of ideas on the table. What are some of the conceptual ideas that you guys utilized to reduce consumption of power?
Well, certainly the town of Bridgewater, and this is not me. There's a lot of people, right? But
you can multiply. So you say town of Bridgewater, but essentially it could be any community. But what have we done that people could multiply around the globe?
So Town of Bridgewater has a PACE program, but there are other people that have PACE programs. So essentially what happens is you borrow money, you get an energy upgrade, and then that energy upgrade is calculated to save you so much money per month, and then you take that money saved to pay off the energy upgrade. Generally, the energy upgrades could take anywhere from 4 to 7 years, and once that loan is paid off, a low-interest loan through the Town of Bridgewater, then that's money that you're putting in your pocket, right? So what you get out of that is you get the energy upgrade, you get the savings on energy, and then you get the money savings in future days.
So what are some of the things people could do?
Well, they can certainly talk to the town of Bridgewater. They can get an energy audit. The energy audit will tell you where you've got energy issues in your home.
Whether it's windows or
exactly.
Or
So you may think that it might be this, but when you get the energy audit, they do the vacuum test and they do all the other testing. They put that together in a report. They'll say, if you were to do this, you're going to save this. If you were to do that, you're going to save that. Do you know what I mean? And then you can take that information and make an informed decision about how those energy upgrades are going to affect your heating costs and your heating bottom line, right?
And that comes into, so if you multiply that globally, you're talking about some massive differences.
Trillions of dollars,
Not just money, but also global warming on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about things that are happening. We were talking about it earlier that general people that live on this planet Earth don't really get to see the dramatic things that happen that scientists are leading us to try to help understand. If we continue down this path that we're going down with fossil fuels that we're utilizing, this is the direction we're going to be going into.
Yeah.
And it's the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody living in Bridgewater or Lunenburg County could remember when they were kids. So when going back when they were 10-year-olds or 15-year-olds, and the environment that they lived in then compared to the environment that they're living in now, right? And as I've seen pictures of people that were skating on the LaHaye River. Well, you would be absolutely crazy to attempt that.
Wouldn't happen.
You know what I mean?
Way.
Even our duck pond in the town of Bridgewater cannot sustain a outdoor skating rink. We hoped it would at one point, but it couldn't sustain it.
And that's typical in a lot of communities that used to be that way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It really is. And then the question is why?
Yeah.
Right? And that's where the science comes in. And a lot of political leaders, and I don't want to, lead, but, people that are in positions of leadership internationally that just literally just brush it aside, that it means nothing. And we know that it means so much.
Oh, absolutely. So I think some of it may have the fact that industry is pushing them in a certain direction. Money talks, right?
Of course it does.
And some of these corporations pay
big money
to have them
Huge
elected,
money.
And that
Leverage.
might influence their decision-making process. Do you know what I mean?
May?
Well, I'm
Michael,
being kind.
come on now.
I'm being kind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's an issue. But I think for the PACE program, if on a local scale, if people can see that by saving energy and reducing their energy consumption is going to give them something, in this case, it's going to save them money.
Right.
Then that's how I think it should be approached. Certainly with that particular program. Another thing I just recently, and we had talked before going on air, that I was in the process of buying an e-bike, so an electric bike. So this is a pedal assist bike. It's got a range of 80K. It's got a throttle, so you don't even have to pedal at all for the most difficult of times. But that particular bike, my hope is that it'll give me the opportunity to only have one car in the household.
Right.
We currently have two. So, you're paying insurance, it's $1,000 there. You're paying all the other associated costs with that. So that's money. If I can prove it to myself that it works, even in winter, then that's a savings that I can accrue to myself. But it's also something that I can prove to the community through maybe
teach others.
Coming back here and talking about electric bikes for an hour on the podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Talking about that. But if we can show that people that have a second car but can't really afford it, or people that don't have a car may be able to afford this type of transportation.
Absolutely.
And those people living, say, within 15 or 30 minutes of Bridgewater by bike might be able to access the town and employment and all the other things because there's a lack of affordable rural transportation.
Well, when you think about it, like I mentioned to you earlier that, I own a home in Cuba, and one of the things I see every day is more and more electric transportation. Yeah. And that's in a third world country. Mm-hmm. So why don't we do that here more? Yeah. I mean, now our temperatures aren't conducive to having, the temperature that's going to be, warm all year round. But there is from probably late March, early April till late October, early November, the ability to do that.
Yeah, there is.
And it saves an enormous amount of money. The other thing I always ask is, why are families so interested in buying such large vehicles?
Yeah.
There was a direction about 15, 20 years ago that vehicles were going to get smaller, and I see the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Complete opposite, and I don't know why.
Honestly, Dennis, I don't know either. I for some of these big pickup trucks, they're tanks, right? And just, to me, I just see them as a waste. People on our street have got trucks like that, and I rarely see them use them to put something in them. Right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
a truck is used as a vehicle for specific things.
Yeah. To go to Sobeys or to the superstore to pick up a loaf of bread.
Right. And you don't need a truck for that.
You don't need a truck for that, right? So for me, in my case, I've got a small 4-door Hyundai Elantra, and if I can go smaller, I'd like to go smaller.
I know.
In fact, my next car, we have the second car, sell the Honda, sell that, and get a Prius, and I would be perfectly fine with that myself. And then if I really needed a pickup truck, I would just go and rent one.
Rent one for a day.
Because I might need it 4 times a year.
Or go to a U-Haul and
do that.
Rent that for a day. Exactly. I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
And I just think it's more, we talk about this all the time, needs versus wants. I think people are more in the category of want than what they actually need.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to take a massive event for people to make that kind of change.
Yeah.
That's
like
the thing that
like
I look
COVID,
at.
right? You know,
COVID's been big. I
people
mean,
are changing because of it.
COVID's been big. It's one of the things that, I was isolated in Cuba for 12 weeks. I've been isolated when I come home to Canada for 2 weeks. It's really changed our whole social output, our whole mindset as a planet.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I mean, and I don't want to get into COVID today too much because we could spend 3 hours just on COVID alone.
Yeah.
More than that.
Yeah.
But it has definitely, I think, enlightened us to make better choices.
Yeah.
The
But
needs
it's also
versus
enlightened
wants.
us about the inequity in today's society.
100%.
You know, there are poor people, and I certainly have an appreciation. While I've never grown up poor, I was a middle class, maybe even upper middle class family.
Yeah.
There are certainly people out there that are suffering, and COVID has really highlighted that.
So let's talk about why. Why do we have those categories?
In terms of
We're talking lower income, middle income, and upper income.
well,
Where does it start from?
Well, certainly, if you listen to the economists, and I'm not going to quote anything, but comparing to where we were in 1970 in terms of income
Which is
income
50 years ago.
distribution, in terms of income distribution, where we are now, the top, and we always hear about the 1%.
Yeah, the
but
1%,
it's
yeah.
fed. The top 1% are getting richer and richer and richer, and they're making a fortune, actually, as I understand it, off this COVID crisis. And I don't think they're doing it intentionally. It's just through the assets that they own. Well, I don't, but you know what I mean? So they're making a lot more.
I think it's intentional.
Well,
I mean, really, you take advantage of any situation. I'm not being disrespectful to anyone who has accumulated a massive amount of wealth. But I think it's not so much money that they want to acquire. It's power, influence. So if you're, Jeff Bezos and you have hundreds of billions of dollars in wealth, net worth, then you have that influence to be able to really maneuver government or industries to do exactly what you want them to do. You have that power. So what power does the lower and middle class have in our country anymore? In any country?
I don't see much,
in terms
of.
And like you look at, for example, back in the late 50s, a guy like Fidel Castro, who had the revolution in Cuba, that doesn't exist. That can't exist anywhere in any other country anymore. It won't happen. Yeah. And you can stand up in front of a political building. You can stand in front of any assembly. Government-wise, I don't think it means a hill of beans of difference. Yeah. And that's the challenge that we deal with right now. Is you almost have to say to yourself, I'm in this environment, I'm in this culture. How do I exist in it and get what I want out of it without hurting anyone or with helping others at the same time? That's really what it comes down to.
Using Amazon as an example, where he is a very rich man. I think he's probably the richest man in the world.
One of them.
Everybody likes to shop Amazon, because they got lots of stuff at cheap prices and virtually next day delivery, right, and to your doorstep, and that kind of service is hard to beat for families that are struggling, right?
Well, he's innovative. I mean, there's no question. Yeah. I mean, you can't punish somebody. And Michael's pulling it up right now. The world's billionaires, total list net worth value of $8 trillion. Yeah. The world's billionaires. That's amazing. 178 new members on the list. There's 2,095 billionaires in the world, and their net worth each is around 113. Wealthiest is Jeff. He's the wealthiest, and it's, when you've got guys like Bezos and Bill Gates and Zuckerberg from Facebook, and the other thing is, well, all these guys, you associate them with just Amazon, but these guys own so many other companies. Like a guy like Mark Cuban, who's a billionaire. Yeah. Mark, I watched an interview. Mark he's invested in 150 companies. Yeah. He doesn't run them, but he's involved with them. Yep. And they generate multiple streams of income. So if they have a business loss in one of them or two, they can absorb it. Yeah. And the average person they just don't have that ability.
No.
They just don't have that ability.
They're fighting to put food on the table for the most part, right?
So I think then if you talk about the economics, and it's tough on them there, I think then you focus on if they can't contribute or generate the economics part, I think they can contribute from a cultural standpoint or a society standpoint. And that's where I think volunteerism comes in, because I think a lot of the people, and, you know, I've lived in this community here literally all my life, and a lot of the people who are become infamous volunteers don't have a lot of money, but they contribute in so many different ways that create value for our communities.
Yeah.
So you don't always have to you don't have to have money to do it.
Oh, no.
And I think, you know, I think we both agree on that. We could encourage people to step up, do something that you're interested in, that you're passionate about, and get involved. Find somebody who's in that area and then contribute in that way. You know, I think that's something that we could definitely encourage people to do, not just here, but anywhere globally.
I think you have to find things that people are interested in to motivate them.
Well,
So, you know, we have a program at United Way, a technology program, right?
Right.
So this technology program came about in April 2017.
Okay.
Where I read an article in the Metro, I think it was a Halifax newspaper, about homelessness and the fact that people that were living on the streets, or people that were living in precarious housing situations, had lost access to their support networks. And those support networks, you know, the payphones were going. They couldn't afford technology in terms of smartphones or cell phones, and they couldn't always rely on someone else to use their phone to connect.
Right.
Whether it was with their family, whether it's with a social worker, whether it's with an employer, it could be any sort of things.
Okay.
So I took that information and I brought it back down to Lunenburg County. I reached out to our network, so people like Freeman House, Harbor House, Second Story Women's Center, and said, listen, if we were to create a program where we were to acquire technology, specifically smartphones that had internet capability, would that help your clients? Would it help them give them tools to better themselves and maybe raise themselves out of poverty? The overwhelming response was yes.
Yes.
So with that information, then we had to find a way to acquire smartphones,
right? Which
we did. Initially, we worked with the MJSB, Municipal Joint Service Board, which is a part of the town of Bridgewater, MODL, and Mahone Bay. They had access to phones, and actually we solved the problem for them because they had this technology and they didn't really know what to do with it. They couldn't, there wasn't a way for them to put it out in the community.
Okay.
And they couldn't really give it to staff because it might show favoritism, right? How come they got a laptop? How come they get a smartphone and I didn't? So we kind of solved that problem. So we collected phones from them, some from the South Shore Regional School Board, and we had to do something with them. I'm not a techie, as you know, so we reached out to partners. So so a couple of things had to be done. The phones had to be unlocked.
Right,
was the first thing.
Right,
and I don't know how to do that. And you need someone to do that. You need some, and the phones had to be fixed. So we approached Wireless Wave in the mall and said, listen, we have these, this is our plan. We want to give away iPhones or used iPhones to people in our community that have little to no access to technology. And because of that, it's interfering with their ability to protect their families or to protect themselves.
Well, let's state that or change that because you gave credit to iPhone, but there's Androids as well.
Yeah, but in Lunenburg County,
it's just iPhones.
We're only collecting iPhone. And
really?
Yeah. So the reason is, and I have an Android myself.
Right.
And I know nothing about iPhones.
Right.
But the reason is that they're extremely popular.
Right.
So
of course.
So they're plentiful, and you could strip one and parts off one and use parts on another. Yeah. So wireless wave. The bottom line is wireless wave got on board. So, absolutely. So if there's nothing for us to do, if it's a Sunday morning, or a Saturday morning, and there's nothing going on, there's no customers, then why couldn't we unlock iPhones for you? So that's how that started. So we gave them, we relied on their expertise, gave them a reason to support us, and told them how that support would help the community. So then we had to get phones fixed. So I approached Robert Brown, who I knew. He's fixed TVs and mine. Robert's a great guy, and explained what we were doing. And I mentioned some of the partners, and he says, well, if those are the partners, if those are the people that are getting the phones, then I'm 100% behind this. So Robert donates all his time and fixes the phones.
That's awesome.
So he updates them. He strips one, pulls parts off the other, and we give those are the phones that we give to the partners. So what would happen is Freeman House would say, I've got a client, a brief description. We think that this person would benefit from an iPhone. And if the social workers at Freeman House think that, or if the social workers at Harbor,
take their expertise,
then we rely on their expertise.
Of course.
Everybody knows that iPhones are extremely hard to get. and everybody knows that if they're abused, then the whole thing collapses, right? If somebody says, "Oh, I ripped off a free iPhone from Freeman House," or whatever organization,
It's a domino effect.
and people aren't going to appreciate that.
Exactly.
So we had phones, but it was slow, and the demand was a little bit higher than supply. The two local sources while we were getting phones, we weren't getting enough. We appealed directly to the public to donate phones, and that didn't work. We got a couple, but it didn't work. But one of our board members, Mark Winfield, who
I know Mark. Yeah, absolutely.
So Mark was a partner at BDO, and he took that information, he took our program, and he sold it to the BDO head office in Toronto. They thought it was a great idea.
Of course.
They also had a problem. What are we going to do with all this technology, all these phones? So they started shipping phones from us in lots of 30 and 40.
Fantastic.
So then those phones were distributed. So we started the program in April. We talked about it in April. Started. The first official phone went out in late May of 2017, and to date we've given away 225 iPhones.
That's awesome.
That program costs us $10 per phone adapter. That's the only cost. And then that cost, we have gotten corporate support. So we might get a check for $500, $600, $700. We apply that to the iPhone program, and it reduces the cost that our donors have to pay at United Way. So we can use the money that we saved there to put into programs where there is a real cost, like where you can't rely on volunteers, you have to pay someone, or you have to purchase something to make it happen. That's a great program.
Oh, it is. Talk about the bicycle program. I've loved that for forever.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that program started in 2013, and the reason it started is because nobody knew what the United Way does. We give money, lots of money. In fact, to date, we've given $1.8 million to local charitables and nonprofits.
Michael, why don't you pull up how much money donates, or how much money the United Way distributes globally?
Yeah, so Bikes for Kids started in 2013, and one of the reasons we started it was to obviously help kids, but nobody knew what the United Way does. So we contribute a lot of money to various nonprofits.
Right, I see it every year.
But people, the end user, the person that benefits, doesn't know that the United Way supported that agency.
Right.
Because to them, it's the support, right? So we needed to raise our profile in the community. So our first project was Bikes for Kids, started in 2013.
I remember.
And a couple of the United Ways were doing it, but they were costly. So what would happen is they would hire summer students, rent space, and then fix bikes during the summer. So it's quite possible that a child might get a bike in late August or early September. That wasn't going to work for us. At least I didn't think it worked, because it was expensive, right?
Absolutely.
In my opinion, using donor money when there was a cheaper alternative. So I have a great relationship with the mall, social center, because
I've seen it.
Yeah. So what we did was we said, we have this idea, and this is what we'd like to do. We want to collect bikes in the fall when people are finished with them. We want to, we'll do that at Center Court. We would like you to donate excess store space. So if you've got empty space, we'd like to store those bikes there. And then we would like to work on those bikes over the winter. And then those bikes we would like to distribute in the spring to get into families. So the mall was on board with collection. Mall was on board with storage and fixing. We worked with Spin Your Wheels, Chris.
Right.
And
Chris
Nick,
Talbot.
Chris and Nick. We also work with the Reagan Subaru cycling team.
Right.
And all these bike enthusiasts had no problem fixing bikes. They had the experience. I couldn't fix a bike if my life depended upon it. But I rely on people that can, right? So they fixed all these bikes for us, and we've been putting them out in the community ever since. We don't know, United Way doesn't know the individual families that are suffering. And these are, so when we say Bikes for Kids, it's teens and adults too. So anybody that needs a bike. So we give bikes to children.
Yes.
We give bikes to youth. We give bikes to teens. We give bikes to moms and dads. But we also give bikes to individuals that need a bike for transportation to get to work. So it's a bike. Anybody that needs a bike gets a bike.
7 years. Approximately how many bikes?
525.
Just in a small community of 8,000 people.
Well, this is Lunenburg County.
Lunenburg County, yeah.
So yeah, but still. And in that program, I don't know, maybe a couple $100 in 7 years.
And I can tell you from personal experience in another country, if you had 500 and some bicycles, kids would just die for them.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it really is.
So we had families that got bikes from us that had outgrown them and then redonated them back to us, right?
Right.
So which I thought was pretty cool.
That is
it's
cool.
like people giving back, or for United Way, and even for me, a safe and supportive community is everyone's responsibility. And these people took that as a responsibility. They got a bike from the community, and they were going to make damn sure that they could get that bike back.
So, is that Michael? Do you have that up now?
Mike, I just want to make sure. Can you angle your microphone a little bit?
Yeah, make sure you're just talking to that microphone, Michael.
Yeah,
$365 million is invested by the United Way.
Yeah.
In
and this
Canada.
is just in Canada, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great nonprofit charitable organization. It really is.
So yeah, the United Way I think works in 5,000 communities across Canada.
Yeah.
But then there's also United Way is huge in the United States, but it's also in spreading into Europe and in Asia.
How many countries is United Way in now?
Dennis, I couldn't
Michael,
say
pull it
with
up.
all.
Can you check and see how many countries the United Way is in as of 2020?
A screenshot there of 211. 211 was started by the United Way.
Yeah.
Back in, I think, 1986 in Atlanta, Georgia. And really what it was, 211 is a number, much like 911.
Right, of course.
So 211, you phone 211 if you have if you have a problem that needs solving, if you need information that'll help your family.
Right.
Secure anything, so from child care to elder care to food delivery to mental health services to furniture to food banks, whatever social information you're looking for.
Right.
If you remember, just a few years back, people would use the blue pages, and they'd get pushed between numbers and government departments. 211 accumulates all that information.
Yeah, exactly.
And makes it easy for people to access. 211 started in, as I said, Atlanta, Georgia, 1986, spread across the United States, spread across Canada, and the federal government just recently announced that 100% of Canadians will have access to 211 service. 211 service, so if you're living in Inuvik and you've got a grandmother living in Bridgewater,
right,
and you're concerned about her, that person from Inuvik can phone 211 and get all the service information for the town of Bridgewater. So he or she doesn't have to look for it themselves, which is it's a time saver. And when you're dealing with 211, you're dealing with people in real time. You're having a conversation. That conversation could take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 4 hours.
Right.
It is what it is. What it is. It takes what it takes.
They're all individual.
Absolutely. So 211 also has access to about 176 different languages. So you've got friends in Cuba.
Spanish, could be Spanish.
So they come up in the Bridgewater, or they're isolated. They're in Shelburne for whatever reason.
Exactly.
They're isolated. They need help. Pick up the phone. Say that they need help in Spanish, and then someone will help them in Spanish. They will answer the questions in Spanish. They'll give the information in Spanish, and they will make sure that all the information they need is given to them. And again, if it takes 5 minutes or 2 hours or 20 minutes, it is what it is.
So I think ultimately our focus, when you talk about lower to middle, I'm really specifically interested in what I call the have-nots, and that's the lower income. There's a lot of programs that they can reach out to and access. Not just through United Way, obviously, but there's a multitude of organizations they can reach out to be able to better their lives on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And not just economically, because I think we focus so much on economics today. I really have learned over the last 8 years of my life, it's all about quality, not quantity.
Yeah.
I really have learned that. And my journey has changed so dramatically compared to when I was 20 years old.
Yeah, I totally agree. So if you're a child in Bridgewater, if you're a child in Lunenburg County,
right,
low income, maybe it's a single parent family, but the household certainly can't afford to put give your child all the opportunities that he or she deserves, in my opinion. I think it's our responsibility as a society to take care of our kids. So they could access YMCA programming as an example.
Of course,
we're 35% of their budget, United Way.
Oh, really?
35%.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Big Brothers, Big Sisters. We do Kids and Cops and in-school mentoring. That's United Way funding. We do Girl Talk, which is a summer camp put on as a second-story women's center. It's put across the county. United Way, we give free tickets to the LCLC for skating and swimming for low-income families, thousands of tickets a year. We give out, we have free skates to borrow. So if you got a free ticket, but you don't have the skates,
I love that.
Then we've got free skates to borrow. You can get a free bike. You can get a coach for kids. We have that program. So there's literally dozens of programs that people can access. And United Way pretty well has their finger in everything that kind of gives family support. So it's layered, right? It's all this layered support.
Absolutely.
Pro Kids as an example, and I'm sure that you know what Pro Kids.
Absolutely.
To date, we've invested just over $202,000 in Pro Kids. And now there are pro kids in 4 of the 5 municipal units. The only one that doesn't have one is Mahone Bay. But we invest thousands of dollars. And what Pro Kids does is it provides children with the opportunity to participate in sports, recreation,
Absolutely.
and culture. So you're a leader yourself. You're big into sports and baseball. And if you take a child who maybe doesn't have the skills or doesn't have the confidence, and build that confidence through baseball as an example, and slowly build them up and give, they might think themselves capable of anything is what I'm getting at, right?
Well, I think sports in general, and I had this conversation, excuse me, with leaders in the community at our school board that's local, that if you pull out extracurricular activities out of a school system, the morale
and the arts too.
Well, of course,
but
all
both,
of it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
clubs, arts,
Yeah.
music, which is part of the arts program.
Yeah.
You pull that out of a school,
Yeah.
and the morale is so low in a school.
Yeah.
And I think you learn so many lessons through sports. How to deal with failure.
Absolutely.
How to create a team environment where a lot of people who go and work in the workforce that play sports understand how to exist in a team environment. Where
Absolutely.
if someone didn't play sports, you can almost see it in the work environment because they didn't.
But it also you have to work at it,
Oh,
and then
100%.
nothing comes easily. You know what I mean? And it teaches them that it gives them those skills, which are
Absolutely.
so important.
And they're starting from basics. I mean, I like when you have a Pro Kids program or whatever type of funding program that goes into sports or arts or clubs, whatever the case may be, is they start from usually right from the beginning.
Mhm.
And that's something to learn because you know nothing about something, and all of a sudden you're taking that journey to learn about a specific sport or an instrument or a club. I remember the first time I ever learned how to play dominoes.
Yep.
In Cuba,
Yep.
I knew nothing about dominoes, and then all of a sudden, there's an art to it. There's a skill to it. You have to learn it,
Yep.
and you learn it from leadership. You learn it from leaders within a community or leaders within that sport, whatever the case may be. Which leads me to this question: is who are the people that are involved? I mean, you're the director of the United Way, but there's obviously people that are involved.
Yeah, so we have a board of directors.
Yeah. So how large is it?
There's 8 or 9 people.
Okay.
We have an allocations committee, about the same. So the board of directors is kind of strategic.
Right.
I'm operations.
Yeah.
And the allocations committee makes decisions in regards to where the funding is going. So we have a funding application process. That process starts
I've seen that.
in February, where we ask the community to submit applications.
Right.
They're reviewed in March and April, and the checks are cut in generally April.
And that same process is in literally every other community that has the United Way. So it doesn't matter if it's here in Lunenburg County, Nova Scotia, Canada, or if it's in New York City, or if it's in Los Angeles, California.
It's all community-driven decisions based on the community. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
So yeah. So for us at United Way, all the money raised in the community stays in the community. So we pay a small fee to United Way of National Office in
Of course.
Ottawa.
Well, they have to operate too.
Yeah, they do. So that's $3,000. So that's
Right.
our cost to the United Way. But what happens with the United Way is it's generally through payroll deduction.
Right.
So people could be in Fort McMurray.
Right.
Where they don't have a connection to Fort McMurray, it's a job,
Right.
as opposed to a community, and they may say, and they run all
I want
the
to
oil
donate to the
companies.
United Way
Yeah,
in
so
Lunenburg
I'm
County.
gonna give
awesome.
$20 a month to the United Way. That money comes to United Way of Lunenburg
awesome.
County, and then that's the money that we say that we would give back to.
I remember
the
when
national
that program actually launched because I remember you talking about it, payroll deduction program.
Yeah.
Because I think the staff at Canada Post here and
Yeah.
where we live,
Yeah.
and other
Oh, yeah.
other offices
Yeah.
have contributed to that, which
Yeah.
is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, people are always, the word I use is empathy. I think we need to have more empathy in our planet.
I do too.
If we have more empathy, I think we get better results.
Yeah, I
when
agree.
you look at, Michael brought this up, United Way is engaged in nearly 1,800 communities across more than 40 countries and territories worldwide. We impact the lives of over 50 million people every year. That's substantial.
And the lives that are impacted are, it spreads to families, right? So if
course.
you're helping the grandmother as an example, or the elder in the family we have a program at Souls Harbor where we deliver
Right.
brown bag lunches, nutritious
Yeah.
brown bag lunches. Or this year, because of COVID, we're subsidizing the cost of frozen favorites, and in some cases we gave away over. I think it was 2,500 free meals to seniors, low-income seniors in Lunenburg, Queens County.
That's a huge issue.
So yeah, food insecurity is huge, right? But part of one of the reasons for that is the income structure. So in everybody's talking about a $15 minimum wage. Right now it's $12.55.
Right.
Recently there was a report done by the Centers for Policy Alternatives, Nova Scotia, that identified that the living wage in the town of Bridgewater is $16.80.
Well, you look at, in comparison to the country that's below us, which
Yep.
I know will probably watch this podcast, Bernie Sanders has been really, a leader in that
Absolutely.
category. He's talking about a $15 minimum wage, and I think the minimum wage in the United States is somewhere just slightly below $8 an hour.
Yes. And I think it varies per state.
How is that even reasonable?
Right. So if you're looking,
How can you live?
Exactly. So
$9 an hour. How do you live off that? I don't know.
So if you're looking at here in Lunenburg County, the difference is about $6 an hour, correct?
Right.
So $6,000 on $6 per hour on a 2,000-year work week, which is generally what it is, for simplicity, is $12,000.
Right.
So that family, in order to have it's not a perfect life, but it gives them the opportunity to maybe go and do day trips locally.
Right.
Whereas now they can't afford to go anywhere.
Exactly.
It gives them the opportunity to do activities with their children, make sure that the family has nutritious foods, has access to internet, which is therefore information, which is therefore power for them as a community. But that's $6,000. So for those people, if they don't have it, they have to take it from somewhere. So what's happening is they're buying cheaper, lower nutritional foods, which then affects, if there's children in the house, it then affects their ability to learn. If there's too many gaps between eating, so if the child's only eating one meal a day, as an example, as opposed to 3 or 4, like maybe the wealthier people in the community are,
right.
Then that's going to affect their ability to learn. And then when they have when they're not learning at the level that they should be learning, then they're going to fall behind in society, and they're going to fall.
You look at even you go to a grocery store today. I walked in the other day. You look at the amount of soda that a family consumes, because you can buy soda for 99 cents and then bottled water's $1 more. Yeah. It's hard to make good choices when you have to eliminate things.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
I mean, on the money, right?
And I've lived it.
Yeah.
I've lived, my family in 1982 experienced that when I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. I've seen it. Yeah. I've lived it. I lived it as a young man, raising 2 children. It's not easy to do.
No, it's not.
And it's why I guess people like yourself and myself are so passionate about being part of the solution.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
For around here, I'm not trying to make this talk about United Way, but
no.
But we also have another program called Coats for Kids.
Right. I remember it. Yeah, absolutely.
Coats for Kids, teens for adults too. We collect coats. Everybody's got coats. They don't know what to
100%.
do with it. They want to do something
in a closet
good.
that's not being used at all.
So we give them the opportunity to do that. So we have, again, using the Bridgewater Mall Center Court, people would self-hang their coats on racks that were donated, volunteer labor, as well as companies that donated money to purchase materials to build these racks. We had about 12 of them, identified male, female, boys, girls, teen boy, teen girl. People would self-hang. And then we would move that into a discreet and private storefront that was empty. People could come in. We would engage with Freeman House, Harbor House, all the partners that might have access to people that were of a lower income, and gave them the opportunity to pick out coats at their convenience, in privacy, without eyes on them.
Yeah.
And
how can somebody? Let's talk about how, if someone's to reach out to the United Way, whether it is Coats for Kids or the bicycle program or the cell phones, where does somebody go?
So honestly, I think the easiest, you can obviously communicate directly with us via email or phone. But I think the easiest,
we're talking globally, like.
Well, so there's United Way in Canada.
Do Google United Way, and then you just go from there.
Yeah, or just if you want something in Lunenburg County or Bridgewater, just United Way Bridgewater. It'll come up with Lunenburg County or so the United Way may be global, but it's all about local.
It is, of course, it is.
Yeah,
but each community has a local initiative. So what I'm looking to do is I'm trying to direct people wherever they live.
Yeah.
So if you're living here where we live,
Yeah.
then reach out to the United Way
Right.
in those areas to be able to help.
Right.
I mean, we have people that have coats, we have people that have
Yeah.
used bicycles
Yeah.
and skates and all that kind of stuff. But then there's someone who lives in Austin, Texas, that has the United Way there. They have programs and initiatives that are there.
That may be different from what we have
Right,
here
of
because
course,
it's all about
absolutely.
the community, right?
Well, and the dynamics of
Yeah,
the community,
of the-
because
exactly.
it's different, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we live in a different hemisphere.
Yeah.
So but I think we should encourage people that have, well, more than they need.
Yeah.
To help
Yeah.
those that are in need.
Yeah.
That's really the message today I want to give to people is to do that. It doesn't take much. And I know, like I was, Canadian Tire had a sale on baseball bats one
Yeah, I
day,
remember
and
that.
Jody O'Donnell had them on sale. So I reached out to my social media community, and I said I want to buy the bats, and there was 44 of the bats. Look for donations, and in one day they were all gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we bought all the bats in one day. So there's a ton of kids that have the ability now to play baseball, play soccer, play basketball. I mean, you put a basketball, and that's one of the things I'm trying to teach. We don't see that here anymore, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you grew up and I grew up, you were outside playing sports.
Yeah.
You were active in the community outdoors.
Yeah.
I think today, kids are so much more indoors, and that's not healthy.
Yeah.
It's just not healthy. I don't know how you can explain it to me any other way. It's just not healthy, physically and mentally.
Well, we'll get people out in e-bikes because I think they're going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do that.
100%. I mean, I just think that if we really, focus on being part of the solution and not part of the problem, I think step by step, day by day, week by week, month by month, we go in the right direction.
Yeah. I think people also have to realize it's not as hard as you think, right? It's not as hard as you think.
But the average person doesn't do what you do, Michael. I mean, it's Billy, the spaceman, who is a Boston Red Sox Hall of Famer. He's always said to me, Dennis, you're a professional problem solver. That's what you are, Michael. We need more people that think on their feet to create solutions than to just bury their head in the sand.
Well,
that's the bottom line.
Well,
and you don't give yourself enough credit. You don't.
Well, I don't know if bikes for kids or coats for kids is a solution. It's a Band-Aid.
Well, it helps.
No, but it helps.
I can tell you one thing.
If
you take a woman or a man that's in New York City freezing in the wintertime because they're homeless, and you put a winter jacket on them, that's a solution.
Yeah.
That's a solution, man.
Yeah.
It may not be at the scale that other people think of as a solution, but for that person, that's a solution.
Yeah.
A meal in a day,
Yeah,
that's a solution.
Oh, good point.
I
remember one year there was a gentleman that when we were doing bikes for kids at the mall, just last year, the year before.
Right.
He was about 20 years old, and we said, "What are you doing with the bikes?" And said, "Oh, it's all bikes for kids." And he says, "That was my very first bike I got." So he would have been 12, 13 years old getting
That's
his first
awesome.
bike.
I love it.
But I got my first bike when I was 5, and I came from a privileged family, right?
Yeah.
Because my father had
Talk
money.
about it all the time
Yeah.
with kids down in Cuba and the Dominican Republic. I remember the first time I ever received my first glove as a kid.
Yeah.
I slept with it.
Yeah.
And we distribute, tens of thousands of gloves, and it's that kid's first glove.
Yeah.
And that's you're making an impact in that person.
Yeah.
It may not be that you're providing $100 a month income, but you're creating an impact for them.
Yeah.
They're not going to forget.
Yeah.
And if we just multiply that, right? That I always say, I use this analogy. I don't want to throw a pebble in the ocean. I want to throw a boulder in a lake.
Yeah.
The ripple effects that happen from that boulder can then exponentially grow throughout our communities all around the globe.
Yeah.
And I know I hear this all the time. Oh, but that's just a big dream.
Yeah.
Everything starts with a dream, an idea or a seed. If you don't plant that seed and then have people pour water on it, like for an example, you have had so many ideas over the years that I've listened to, and I loved every one of them. You had the seed, but then you needed people to pour water on the seed, which are the people that actually buy into what you're promoting. Yep. And then they pour that water on the seed, and then that seed grows. Yep. If you don't have people pour water on the seed, or you don't have the seed, the plant never grows.
Yeah, no, good point.
You need both.
Yep.
Right? So what I think this podcast, why I wanted to invite you in, is to encourage people to be part of that water system.
Yeah.
But find people like the Michael Graves of the world and many other people in all communities across North America and in fact around the world that are those types of individuals that try to be part of the solution. That really was, I think it's critically important, at this point.
Yeah, so I would just, it's easier than you think, and it's fun.
Yeah,
We did
absolutely.
the Whimsical Children's Store when we started Christmas on
I
the
remember
Hill.
it.
Well, Bridgewater Shines was the original name.
I remember
We started that Whimsical Children's Store.
Yeah.
That
Was it Michelin in the beginning, or was it down King Street?
No, it started at King
The Arc?
Street, where the Kitchen Witch was.
Oh, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
The
and
Kitchen
Sandra
Witch.
Staton gave us that place. We
yeah.
were kicked out. We thought we had a place in the mall. We had the Pivot, and Sandra Staton gave us the Kitchen Witch for a year, and then we moved it to the Arc, which didn't work out as well, and then we moved it to Michelin. But that was over 120 volunteers that made that happen.
Huge.
We raised thousands of dollars for charity. We gave children the opportunity to buy a unique Christmas gift that they purchased themselves to give the parents or loved ones. And we raised thousands of dollars for the Arc and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of food for the food bank. But what's good about that, Dennis, is we used, again, we worked with the STEP program at Parkview. We gave them an idea, a reason. So we turned it into a classroom project. So they had to design, they had to build, they had to do a lot of the work themselves. And what we did, along with Cheryl Fougere, Councillor Cheryl Fougere, was that we kind of managed it. So if they had a problem, we would solve those problems. So you need this, we'll get you that. If you want that, we'll get you that. Right?
Well, you need to connect the dots, because an idea will never come to fruition with a few people.
Yeah.
We need an army.
But that whole thing is, if we maybe spent $2,000 in 13 years, maybe it wasn't much.
Well, it's a lot of man hours that people don't mind giving because it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
But I would say if the why is big enough, the how becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. But they were chunks at times, small little chunks at times.
Of course.
Like Cheryl and I spent a little bit more time on it, which was fine, but the volunteers that we got, just little chunks here, and it was all manageable, right?
Absolutely.
So,
you need someone that's going to be the captain of the ship, is going to be able to provide the direction,
and
then you need those people who are going to be rowing the oars.
Yeah, so it worked
That's
out
what it's
well.
all about.
Unfortunately, it came to an end, but it is what it is.
Well, everything does.
Everything does.
I mean, everything goes in cycles, but that doesn't mean that the new seed doesn't get planted either, right? There's always the next thing. I always go back to Christopher Columbus. I mean, he just didn't make one trip.
No, true.
Right?
Yep.
If you're a dreamer and you believe something can be done, you put action behind the dream, it works. If you don't put any action behind the dream, it just becomes a wish.
Yeah.
And I think most people, they just wish something would happen.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I look at is associate with people in your community that can radiate that energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, you may be struggling, economically. Many people do, especially right now.
Yep.
But the bottom line is that if you can associate yourself with individuals that can go row the oars in the right direction, there'll be opportunities that present themselves along the way. That's something that someone never really believes sometimes. I think many people think that the government's going to take care of us.
Well, they're not.
And that's just evident. And I think if we could just let people know, they're there to manage a business, whether it's the government of Canada, the government of the United States, the government of England, the government of Brazil. They're a business, and they're not. And honestly, most of those businesses aren't working really well. Mm-hmm. They're all in massive deficits. Yeah. Massive debt. If you ran a household like they run the country, you'd be done. Yeah, because you don't have access to printing money to solve the problem. Yeah. I mean, we all have prints in our basements. If I was over here and we could just print off money, it'd be no problem. We don't have that ability, and the only one that has that ability are governments. Yeah. And I'm not saying I lost faith in government. I'm not. I guess when I know I go to a municipal government, and I know I made this post the other day on Facebook. I know every single person that ran for the municipal election.
And so you should. That's your responsibility.
Absolutely.
As someone who lives in a town or a municipal unit, it's your responsibility to know the issues, and it's your responsibility to know the candidates that could.
Hard to complain about something if you know nothing about the subject.
Yeah,
and we have too many complainers that just complain about nothing.
Oh yeah, and without information, right?
Absolutely.
But for municipal government, which is the closest form of government that people experience, we're not allowed to run deficits. So we're not allowed to run deficits. We're allowed to have debt, but that debt is monitored by people, and we're called on the carpet for it, so to speak.
So
to account for
I'm going to lead in that direction because I'm going to segue right into this now. So on a municipal level, we have independent representatives.
So we do.
I get to choose.
Yeah.
I get to choose. So I wanted to choose a diverse group of people in different backgrounds. So I know we're hitting on different subjects. So I know when I vote for Michael Graves, I'm bringing his expertise to the table. His experience, his expertise. I'm voting for another individual, and then I put them all together. That should cover as much of a blanket as much as the community as possible.
That is the hope.
That's what you're hoping to achieve, right?
So
as
that
much
is,
as you can.
So that is easy in a system that the town of Bridgewater has. We are all at large.
Right.
So every councillor in the town of Bridgewater is responsible for every square inch of the town of Bridgewater.
Yeah.
When you get into the larger rural areas, like MODL or
Right.
MODC, they have a ward system.
Right.
So the primary concern is people living in their ward. So I think in Modal, as an example, there's 11 wards.
Right,
So that
exactly.
particular councillor's focuses on a particular ward, Ward A. Somebody else's focus is on Ward E. Whereas the town of Bridgewater, it's all. And so.
But still, even in that situation, with like not just the MODL, but any other rural representation in Canada, the United States, anywhere in the world, at least you have independent representation. So that means that if I have this representation in my community, I can go to that individual and say, we have these concerns.
Right.
That's what I segue to now, the provincial government. Because now you believe, and this is something that's happened in the fisheries industry here just recently where we live, is, and it's not at the provincial level, that's federal, but still, we'll get to that in a second, is if you're part of provincial government, isn't it your responsibility to actually represent your constituents? They vote you in as the elected representative of the community. So, and I'm not going to name names in our community because, I mean, this is an example across the country. You can multiply this right across the country. So their job is to represent the constituents. But the truth is they represent the party.
Right.
And that's where I fall off because I know, I mean, I've seen so many different situations that have occurred, especially over the last 12 months to 24 months, that just would never happen at the municipal level. Yeah. So why don't we have political reform? Why don't we say, at the provincial level and at the federal level, we're going to vote independent representation. That way there you have more accountability and you get better results. I just don't, because I think when you're voting, when you get a majority government, whether it's, in this case, in Canada, it's, it's Liberal, Progressive Conservative, NDP, the Green Party, you can go on and on. In the United States, it's Democratic or Republican.
Yep.
You're voting for a team. And I don't even know the team even cares if you're on the team.
Yeah.
Especially when they get voted in. Once they're voted in, they go by their own initiatives. And then those who toe the rope and do what they're asked to do or even told to do, they get those positions allocated to them for doing it. So it's more of a team concept. I remember I don't know if you remember Garth Turner.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Garth was a financial planner. He was for the government cabinet minister. Yep. The PC party threw him out of their party because he questioned them too much. Yeah. Here's a guy who's incredibly intelligent, has written more books than and I've read quite a few of them. How could you get rid of somebody who is so accountable that really questions why we're doing certain things like that? And that's where the party process gets into. And I think that's why people have lost confidence in government.
Yep.
When you say the word government, I've asked so many people, who is that? Who is government? When you say the word, I don't trust the government, or I like the government, or I believe in the government. Well, who's the government?
Yeah, I don't think it's we the people anymore.
I don't think either. I really don't. And I think we hide behind these ideals. And I think it's more of a sales game. They use media today, television, radio, the internet more than... Now, the internet exposes a lot more than we've had before. Because back in the day, when you had just radio, newspaper, and television, they could... And the TV stations that we watch, which I'm not a big TV watcher, other than sports, obviously. But I'm not a news guy. I don't watch a lot of news. I kind of stay in touch. I'd rather watch a town council meeting online or on Eastlink, whatever the case may be, than to watch the news every night, because I don't even know if it is news.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it is news. This is how much time you have. These are the stories we're going to run, and it's mandated by people who have the monetary influence. This is what you're going to tell the public.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I think, you know, I'm hopeful, but I'm not optimistic. You know, I tell people that all the time, and I'm looking forward to seeing more people like Michael Graves in the world.
Well.
That and listen, it's true. I mean, listen, some of the greatest people in the world that are remembered, like the Nelson Mandelas, like the Martin Luther Kings, started from somewhere. They just had the courage to ask the questions.
Well,
you know, and that's what this podcast is all about, is who are the next people? And look at what they over on behind my shoulder here is it's called the Cleveland event, and I wanted to post that on our walls for the podcast because it had some of the most influential sports people in the world: Muhammad Ali, you know, Jim Brown, and other individuals that were part of that event that talked about the social rights that people have. You know, and listen, that was in the 60s. Like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he's been retired from the NBA since the 80s.
Yeah, long time.
And how much progress have we made, Michael?
Yeah.
I mean, look at what's happened over the last 12 months. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen the three words, Black Lives Matter, whether it was on the NBA or whether it was on the, you know, whatever the case may be, it's everywhere.
Yep.
The truth is, everybody's lives should matter.
Yeah, but I think, you know, for the Black Lives Matter, I think that they're at an extreme disadvantage.
They are, no question.
I think
No
the system's
question.
against them.
Well, you talk about we could go on forever.
That's really turned into two sides too, because with the Black Lives Matter movement, it's turned into an argument over Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, when I feel like they're both the same thing. Generally, it's just what they need to focus on saying is that they're focusing on the Black Lives part right now because that's something that needs to be focused on right now. You can't overlook the fact of what's happened on camera and with the police brutality and stuff. So it needs to be recognized at least. Yes, all lives matter, but in the current state, we need to look at, Black Lives Matter. We need to make sure we're fixing the problems that we have going on.
And who's going to fix those problems? See, and that's what it gets down to. You're the kind of individual that has been a professional problem solver in our community.
Yeah.
Who's the problem solver at the provincial or federal level? Who is the Michael Graves at that level? Are they there, or are they pushed by major dollars to make the decisions that corporations want made? That's the questions that we need to ask, that we need to push. And I think a lot of the times when we do ask those questions, we're just pushed aside. I mean, we just pushed aside. So our votes, do they really matter? Yeah, they matter. Yeah. But I think once someone's elected, you need to make them accountable.
Hold them accountable.
100%. And it takes the leadership in a community like, the fisheries industry. They're right now making the government officials in those positions accountable. And I love it. Yeah. And I think that spreads throughout the whole globe. And I don't want to get into the pandemic today because COVID-19 could be a 4-hour session, but equally as much as what we're dealing with right now, I think most people, if you interviewed them, Michael, check online and see if they have a survey of the confidence in COVID-19, like where it came from, where it originated. See if there's anything online for that, because
I think where it originated, the disease,
where people think COVID-19 originated, because
in Wuhan.
Well, that's your opinion, but
that's the general. From what I've seen going online, they believe that it's.
Well, I'm not talking about the physical place where it originated. I'm talking about where it originated, where the idea was it a laboratory
You mean
idea?
if people believe it was a manufactured?
Exactly. Because I mean, I think that's where you have confidence in the government as well, because you say to yourself, how could you ever let this happen? I mean, how could you ever let this happen?
Mm-hmm.
This has affected so many people in so many ways.
Yeah.
And I don't even know. I try to think about like I know that the travel industry, because we own a company in the travel industry, and that's been decimated to beyond. But the one that really hits home is somebody who's a restaurant owner.
Yep.
That's the one I think of regularly.
Yeah.
There's someone who loves their business. It's their life.
Yeah.
They studied it for sometimes decades. It's their home every day.
Yep.
And then
Long days.
they have to close that business. It has to be catastrophic.
Yep.
You know, and that's really where
I'm getting some things here. There's conspiracies that it's coming from a third of Americans. It's an American poll, but a third of Americans believe that it is some kind of conspiracy, whether it was made in a lab or if it has something to do with the new 5G technology. Let's see. A new report saying that a third of Americans surveyed believe that COVID-19 was created by humans in a laboratory.
Yeah. That's where leadership comes in, right?
Yeah.
You know, leadership and science.
and it's funny because Michael, pull up. I need to get this guy's name. It's been bugging me for days. 2016 presidential Republican candidates. A list of all the candidates that ran in 2016. Why in the world, you know, I go back to 2016 and I watch all the candidates for the Republican Party. How in the world did Donald Trump ever get selected? I mean, it was almost like a show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's one individual I've got to find it because I watched it. I watched the movie on Netflix. He's Michael, let's go candidates. We're looking for a brain surgeon.
Oh, he's the housing minister now, isn't he?
He was world-renowned brain surgeon.
Yeah.
Type that into Google, Michael. The world-renowned brain surgeon runs for a Republican nomination in 2016.
But I think he's in the Trump White House right now as the housing secretary.
How in the world do you get somebody who's the best brain surgeon in the world become your housing secretary?
Yeah.
Benjamin Solomon Carson.
Ben Carson.
Yeah, Ben Carson.
That's it.
You know,
Yeah.
Ben is, you get somebody who is so incredibly intelligent, so advanced. There's so many people out there in society like the Ben Carsons of the world. Why aren't we utilizing those guys?
Well, there's been lots of controversy about him, as I understand it. Ben
Yeah,
Carson.
but there's always controversy with
Yeah.
everyone because of the monetary influence. That's
Yeah.
the other thing too, right? I mean,
I'm not 100% sure about that, so I'm not going to go further. But
Right.
I just understand it's my understanding that there's some controversy.
well, what about?
In
Come on,
terms
let's
of
go.
competency, he's not as competent. He may be a very good brain surgeon, but it doesn't extend anywhere else.
Well,
Oh,
that's
and
where you need to put a round peg in a round hole.
Yeah, and he doesn't understand
Sometimes you use where they're too
the
intelligent.
nuances of the
Yeah.
community that he's
Yeah,
serving.
exactly.
He may be very good at fixing brains, and
Yeah.
I don't deny him that.
Right.
But
A lot of positions that are given to individuals are given
Yeah.
for specific reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a leverage.
so I think this is probably more political
Yeah,
reason
course.
as opposed to merit based,
Yeah.
more political based. And we know I can say that the Trump administration is very politicized or very political about everything they do, and some of the selections might be
questionable.
questionable. If you were to put it at a table of reasonable people, maybe at the municipal, it wouldn't happen at the municipal level.
No, it wouldn't.
It's certainly here in Canada. It wouldn't happen at the
Absolutely,
municipal
it
level.
wouldn't. I mean, you want competency,
Yeah.
and that's what you're looking for. Competency, credibility. You're looking for accountability
Yeah.
for your representatives to be able to represent. And what I think happens is they get into this big machine.
Mhm.
Conceptually, they think there's a certain ideal.
Mhm.
that they're going to live by, and all of a sudden they get swallowed by the machine. Yeah. It's happened so many different times.
So in the municipal level, it's not driven by politics. We're just people that our kids
love your community.
Friends, and we love the community, and sometimes we volunteer together.
But don't we love our province?
Yeah.
Don't we love our country?
But then you get into higher parties, and that's where politics gets hold, and you're told what to do and how to think, which I don't agree with.
No,
but it happens.
I mean, if we can have a successful model at one level, why can't we multiply that successful model? Like, that's the question. When did the Liberal Party first get formed? When did the Progressive Conservative Party first get formed? Who created them? Yeah. Why was it created?
So it was probably as a way to distribute money.
Absolutely.
Again, it comes down to money, right?
And influence.
And
if your party gets in to power, then you owe the people that put you in power. And then, that's the bottom line with the political party
ideology system. And all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, but I'm not well versed enough to have really a conversation about that. You know what I mean?
But comparing it to what you've experienced
at a municipal level,
there's a lot less corruption.
Yeah,
there's a lot more accountability. Yeah. Why don't we follow those kind of models? I just don't understand. Yeah. I think the other thing is I think people just don't ask the question enough.
And we see what happens in the municipality, right? Someone complains about bad roads. We have the ability to go and check out those bad roads, confirm or confirm if in fact what they say is correct. Mm-hmm. And then we have the power, the ability to talk amongst ourselves, meeting the other councillors, and then provide a recommendation to staff who could correct a problem. You know what I mean? We have that ability. We have the ability to quickly communicate, get answers, and communicate those back. It's a little bit harder when you've got, instead of 160 employees like the town of Bridgewater has, I think, compared to 50,000 or 70,000 employees that maybe the province of Nova Scotia has, or millions of employees or hundreds of thousands of employees that maybe federal government has spread across this great nation, right? C to C to C. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying.
I think if you take a sports organization, I am not a big fan of the New England Patriots, but
that's hockey, right?
That's football. You take the Montreal Canadiens back in the 70s, or you take
that's hockey.
That's hockey. You take the New York Yankees. You have a budget that's available, and you hire the right people to perform certain tasks at the highest level that have a level of intelligence that focuses on winning.
Yeah.
And what is winning? Winning is being successfully putting your game plan together. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes what happens at the provincial or even at the federal level is that it's not about winning. It's maybe just in a different way, but not for the average person. And that's why I think, look at the voter turnout. I mean, we can't use this. With technology, there's almost no excuse. I don't know of a place that you couldn't access, whether it's a library. Yeah. When you only have 26, 27, 30%, 40% contribution for voting, the question I have is why? Yeah. And I think in most cases, is they've just given up. Yeah. Or they're not engaged at all. Mm-hmm. And how could you live somewhere, whether it's in a community or a province or a country, where you don't have to know everything that's going on, because that would just consume your day. Yep. But you should know. Be aware. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And I think that's where, if you're more engaged, if we take our attention off the garbage that we watch every day, and we focus it on the content, I think we get better results. Good. And that's what I want to encourage people to do in this podcast today, is to get engaged. Mm-hmm. Pick an area where you think you can positively contribute, and then engage in the process. And if you don't know how, find somebody. Find a Michael Graves out there. Oh. Find a retired Bill McGinnis that just finished, or find our new councillors, or find your local MLA. Go to your local MLA's office or your member of parliament and say, listen, these are my skill sets. I'm working, but I'd like to do something here in our community to make it better. Yeah. I think if we have more people that go in that direction, it's a better place we've got a pretty good country in the world, but there's a lot of room to improve.
There's always room to improve. Always.
So
absolutely.
Anything else you want to contribute, Michael? It's your, is there anything you're doing right now that, is there anything you're going to be pursuing now? Like, you're obviously with the United Way still. You're finished in municipal politics,
Yeah.
but is there anything else you're taking on that you want people to know about?
Yeah, so the e-bike I'm working on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
see how that works out, and see if we can promote e-bikes as an affordable source of transportation for people. But one other thing I'm thinking about is, and I'm working with Councillor Penny. I forgot her name. My God, getting tired. Anyways, Councillor from Mahone Bay.
Right.
I can give you the name.
Yeah.
Penny Carver. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Penny.
No problem.
So in Lunenburg County, 1/3 of households, about 28% of households are single persons. One person paying the rent, one person paying the power, one person paying for heat, one person paying for
Right.
internet.
And that's difficult.
28%. In North America and Canada, North America and around the world, loneliness is a growing health concern.
Absolutely.
So what would happen if you could take some of those, and in Lunenburg County, that equates to about 6,800 households. By now.
Wow.
So what would happen if you could take 1,000 of those households and encourage them to live together, co-live together, but not as a landlord-tenant, but as, two people that may become good friends over time, because it takes a while, right? So these
I like the concept.
two people are now sharing a home, and it may be an existing home, so it may be someone who had a house as opposed to somebody moving from an apartment, or it may be two people who just decided to sell everything they had and move in together, right? So they would be saving. They would have saving money on rent. They'd be saving money on a mortgage. They'd be saving money on power. They'd be sharing everything, right? So instead of heating one house for one person, you're heating one house for two
Absolutely.
people. So the extra money could then be used to increase diet. Extra money could be used to buy presents for grandchildren. It could be used for trips to see the grandchildren in Calgary or Halifax. Or
Have a gym pass. Or be able to go to the gym.
Have a gym pass, exactly.
Go to the YMCA or 902 Athletics or whatever the case you want to do.
It does all that. So potentials could be two single moms that may co-live together to support each other. So when one person is working, the other person can babysit, because stuff has to be done.
Absolutely.
It could be a person of whatever age that has a real interest in learning a foreign language. It might invent somebody from India, or it might invite somebody from Mexico or some other country to live under some conditions. And those conditions may be, I want to learn Spanish. You only have to speak Spanish to me. And I'm going to try and speak Spanish to you.
I love the
But
concept.
at the end of all this, I'm going to learn Spanish, and you're going to have a place to live. So some of the arrangements may be, if it's an older person that needs support, might be, well, you cut my grass and take out my garbage,
Absolutely.
and I'll reduce the rent
100%.
for you. They win, and the renter, or both win, because they both get something out of it. What I really like about this is this is a way to provide affordable housing to people. It's not for everybody. I get that. It's not for everybody.
But there is a segment.
But there is a segment.
Absolutely, no
and
question.
I, personally myself, if anything was to happen to my spouse, my wife, I would actively search a co-living relationship.
Absolutely.
Because I like people, and
Love people.
I want to be around
people person.
But what I really like about this particular concept is that it doesn't cost the provincial government, the federal government, or municipal government a dime. It costs the government nothing.
Exactly.
The benefits are huge. It stops social isolation. It helps solve the loneliness problem. It gives more income, disposable income in the hands of people, and it virtually has zero costs associated with it.
Well, really,
Right.
that's about, like, it's expanding what people see as normal in North America.
Yeah.
Because I can say, even just for myself, traveling down south and seeing how families live together there,
Yep.
changed my perspective on even moving back
Absolutely.
home here with mom. Like, I moved back home,
Yep.
and I have, in my mind, I know I see this
Mhm.
differently than anybody else who I say, oh, I live at home with my mom.
Yep.
To them, the North American
Yep.
mindset is,
Yep.
oh, what happened to you?
Yeah.
Or they instantly feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
But for me, I get to see my mother every day.
Yeah.
I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have that. And I have friends that tell me, like, man, you got it good. You got someone there with you at least. And I'm like,
but your mom's getting something out of it too.
True,
Your
yeah,
family.
exactly.
Like, it's win-win-win.
Win-win.
right?
And
Nobody's
that's the
taking
scenario
advantage.
that I'm talking about. Like, when you're saying have two different people live together, that's an amazing idea, because it gives you the ability to see how somebody else lives that you don't know at all.
Yep.
You get their point of view on stuff, and it brings a little bit more togetherness to, it'll bring to the province, to the country, just to know that people are able to do that with each other.
Yeah.
It's good.
And the connections are, it could be somebody who loves music. Maybe it's somebody who loves the violin, and
Absolutely.
the violinist is looking for a place to live
Yeah.
and wants to practice violin. Well, so do you know what I mean?
If you can do, like, it's almost like niche marketing, like where you find, if you could connect the dots, that professional problem solver situation where you can say you're going to connect 2 people or even 3 people in some cases that have similar interests, where, and they may be different age.
Age doesn't matter.
Because, like you say, somebody could bring something to the table that would be contributing to the household being looked after. That's another win-win, huge win-win.
So, the best example for those people old enough is the Golden Girls, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, the Golden Girls, as I remember the show, somebody put a ad on the bulletin board of a grocery store, which is now Facebook or something. And I believe 4 other independent women responded to that. They entered the household as strangers, and they lived in the household as friends.
Because there's a lot of retired people that are living alone.
Yeah.
That have a lot to contribute to society.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's where I look at it too, is that I really have valued the contribution of the knowledge base of someone that's a senior citizen that's lived, decades longer than I have, and take their knowledge base based on their own personal experiences of what they learned along the way.
Yeah.
They could be a retired principal, school teacher. They could be, someone in the military, and all of a sudden they feel like they're contributing back to society again.
Yeah.
I think it's a great win-win.
Yeah.
So where is that coming from, Michael?
So this is coming from SHAC, Social Housing Action Coalition, which I'm a board member.
Yes.
I'm a board member there. I was a board member there as part of the town of Bridgewater.
Right.
But I'm also a board member there as part of the United Way. So this is something that Penny Carver...
This is why you have no time to be a town council.
Well, so this is something that Penny Carver and I had talked about and hashed out.
Well, that's passion.
So there is a company
purpose.
now out of Kelowna that has an online platform that they want to roll out, and I would like to do something with them.
Yeah.
It streamlines it, right? Makes it streamlined.
100%. Well, you need to have a funnel.
Yeah.
Where people can go into the funnel.
Yeah.
And then you sort people through the funnel.
Yeah.
Then people don't get lost.
Yeah. So it's like a glorified dating app. Like you sit.
100%.
This is my likes, my dislikes. This is my habits, and then
I love it
through algorithms.
That could be done right across the country.
I think so too. So that's what this company wants to do. So I can see us working with them, but there may be other companies out there as well. I'm not gonna.
Well, you can Google that. I mean, if somebody, whenever you hear an idea that's so unique but innovative and logical, just dig. Yeah, just dig. Ask the people. Go to your member of parliament. Go to your MLA. Go to your senator. Go to your representative, local representative. That's their job. That's their job, is to find that information. Yeah. Don't live, whether it's, like in Michael's case or someone who's a senior citizen's case, if you don't have to live alone, and you can leverage yourself. Yeah. And that's the thing, too, is you're leveraging your income, you're leveraging your time, you're leveraging your contribution to the household. Yeah. And a lot of people don't like living in an apartment. Some do. Yeah. Some do. I mean, obviously, but to live in a household with people and they can contribute, I think it's a great idea, great concept.
And people don't have to be afraid. Like, there's police checks done, there's background checks, there's so much
criminal record checks, and there's all kinds of checks that you do.
It'll be something that'll be really healthy for people, I think.
I think so too.
It's something that you're talking about loneliness and stuff like that, and especially with COVID and all, and we're obviously not talking about that right now, but it's something people need, especially in the country. You need to feel a little bit more together. Yeah, and that's a great idea to do something.
Somebody to cook for, somebody to talk about the news, somebody to discuss that favorite TV show, somebody to discuss the weather with, somebody to sing a song with. Like, there's so many reasons.
Someone to get up in the morning
for.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, just to get out of bed and say, there's 3 of us or 2 of us or 4 of us in this household, and I have a purpose. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that need to have that purpose. Yeah. If there's no purpose to get up, some people just don't do it.
They don't do it. So, roommate, you and I are going to start walking, and we're going to eat more sensibly. Yeah. But that's easier when you have a
buddy system.
Yeah, the buddy system.
Healthier lifestyle. I was talking to a good friend of mine. We talked about when we retire, which I don't even know if I ever will do, but we talked about a retirement community where we would actually build little retirement chalets, but we're all part of one community. So we had 8 chalets, and we had a big community room with a pool table and swimming pool, and we all contributed towards it together, but we see each other every day. Yeah. So we still have that connection and that friendship. This goes even beyond that, because you're connecting people that didn't go to school together, didn't grow up together, but have common interests. And you say the app would actually be able to connect those dots.
Yeah, yeah. So what you just described is actually happening here in Bridgewater.
Yeah.
Through Treehouse,
I love
through
it.
Kate DeVries
I
and
know,
Leon
I love it.
and that group.
I love it.
Yeah. But,
you know.
You could still do that stuff on your street. So I live on Glenridge as an example, or this street here. You could still bring neighbors together. I remember
100%.
in Montreal back in the 70s that we would have a street party. We close off one end of the street.
How much do you see that now?
You don't.
Come on, Michael. You don't see that
so
at all,
everybody
right?
would bring out barbecues.
100%.
Everybody would
Love
bring out
it.
picnic tables,
Love
and
it.
then everybody would just. It was a community barbecue.
I mean, there's neighborhoods today on a street. You don't even know who your neighbors are.
Yeah.
That's sad. I mean, it really is, because your society is within your household, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And people like yourself or myself or Michael or many others, just in our community alone, but across the country, we're not the norm. We're the exception, and we need to create more exceptions. People need to get out and interact more. You just can't exist in a household and then go through your last 10, 15, 20 years of your life just puttering along.
Yeah.
There's so much life to live.
Yeah.
I think it's a great concept, great concept.
So that's what I'll be working on.
So
that and the bike.
I mean, obviously you have lots of time left in your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything else that you get your hands dipped into, or?
Well, Christmas on the Have. I've been with Christmas on the Have for 15 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's been that long.
Operating the 10 programs at United Way, it does take a little bit of effort. It's not a huge amount of effort.
But still,
but it takes effort.
You only have so many hours in a day. You're still married, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I deliver meals for Souls Harbor, which is a United Way project. So brown bag lunches to seniors.
Love it.
But I'm the emergency driver. So what I told them is I'm available because I'm very flexible. My timing is flexible.
Of course, yeah.
I could work at night or I could work during the day. Work has to get done.
Right.
But if they need somebody on a Friday at delivery days are Tuesdays and Fridays at 1:30. If they need somebody and I'm available, just email me. And if I can
Is there somewhere, if somebody wants to volunteer some of their time?
Yeah, so you talk to Christina Potty at the South Shore Regional Library.
Okay.
So she's the coordinator.
Yeah.
So we did have it originally at the town of Bridgewater through Energize Bridgewater. Nelson Nolan and that group were doing the logistical part. But they're starting to ramp up Energize Bridgewater and Smart Bridgewater. And so we had to move it somewhere else. So
Sure.
we negotiated with the library, provided a little bit of funding, and they're going to do that.
Good.
Coordinating piece. Right now, we do 25 meals a day, 21 right now. Capacity is 25, and we think we can do another full day a week, so 3-day delivery a week to another group of seniors. So what we do is we work with senior safety coordinator, continuing care, people that have access to seniors that are maybe struggling, may have low income issues, but people that are known to the social service community. So those are the people we work with. Because you want to get the right people, right? You don't want to get Richie Rich's mom taking a brown bag lunch because he or she wants to save money, right?
Yeah.
So it's we think we're getting the right people.
Good.
At least, yeah.
To anybody that does want to help too, we'll make sure we got links in the description if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Spotify, just pop over, look for the Weekly Woodcast on YouTube, and you can watch that video. And down below, you can check out all the links from anything we talk about today.
Yeah, so currently the service is available in the town of Bridgewater. And maybe with some expansion in the Wildville, Hebville, just outside town limits, but mainly. But this is something that could be recreated in other communities across Nova Scotia. Across
Once again,
Atlantic
you just got to
Canada.
dig. If you're watching this or listening to it, you just got to dig.
Yeah.
I mean, we have so many people that complain about problems. It's about digging for solutions.
Yeah.
They're out there. Yeah. Many are. Not all of them, but there's many.
Yeah.
You just got to dig. And that's what we're really trying to do in this podcast today, is to encourage people to do that. Dig. Rowing those oars in that boat together and create positive solutions. Because if we don't do stuff like that, Michael, then we let someone else row the boat and put it in a direction that the general public may not, in most cases, want to go into.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's really what it's all about, is engaging your community, engaging your province, engaging in your nation. I'm not saying run for politics, but what I'm saying is just be informed.
Be informed, yeah.
And if you don't know how to get informed, reach out to someone who can give you that direction.
Absolutely.
Some people think sometimes there's so much information, I won't get started. I'm going to start with the basics.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with starting with the basics.
Nothing at all.
Anything else?
2 things. Walk a mile in somebody else's shoes
Absolutely.
and be kind.
Dennis Woodworth with Michael Woodworth at the Weekly Woodcast, with a very great personal friend of mine and a huge humanitarian in the world, Michael Graves. Thanks for being here today, Michael.
There you go. Thanks.